out trying to get in the pits.
29 car.
Oh, that's it. I'm telling you, that is
a brutal hit.
It is. That I don't like the looks of that.
Keselowski made contact. Keselowski and Jones into the outside wall, and Brad will slam hard into the inside wall. Massive collision for Brad Keselowski.
Oh, trouble. The two-car upside down, over and on to Scott Briggs. It's the big one.
Oh, boy, who is that still flipping?
Sauter. It was Johnny Sauter.
There's not anybody left.
If you lined up 60 drivers and brought them all in here, they'll give you reasons why it happened to somebody else, but it'll never happen to them. You fool yourself into believing that it's always going to be somebody else, but it's not always somebody else.
In 2008, NASCAR experienced one of the worst crashes of the COT era in a qualifying session at Texas Motor Speedway. It was considered to many as one of the worst wrecks in NASCAR history, and rewatching the replays today, it's hard to contest that. The fact that Michael McDowell walked away from the incident unscathed was a true testament to the safety improvements in the sport. After this crash, fans were just thankful that the sport didn't suffer another passing of a driver and that we wouldn't have to experience another scary impact like this again. But what always baffled me was that 3 years later, not only would NASCAR see another hard impact with the COT car, but it happened to the same team and the same number only 3 years later. In the 2011 race at Watkins Glen, excitement was at an all-time high thanks to an international driver named Marcos Ambrose who was looking to win his first race in the NASCAR Cup Series. Near the end of the race, plenty of teams were on differing strategies with only a couple laps left to go. This meant that everyone was going to push their cars to the absolute limit. On the final restart of the race, it was do or die for many teams throughout the field, and going into the final lap near the back, almost the ladder unfolded. Out of the exit of turn number 1, Boris Said, a veteran in road course racing, made heavy contact to the number 6 of David Reagan. Reagan would then head towards the outside wall, going into the S's of the racetrack. Unfortunately for the number 6, the walls at Watkins Glen were turned diagonally towards the racing surface, causing the car to slingshot back onto the racetrack. Ruderman had no time to react as his car slammed into the right front, causing Ruderman to head towards an opening before turn number 2. The guardrail held the car on the racetrack, but the major impact caused the car to uproot and tumble across the track. Remarkably, the caution was not shown immediately due to NASCAR wanting the race to not finish under yellow, but for obvious reasons, race officials soon decided that a caution had to be thrown to check on the condition of David Ruderman. Similar to the incident that happened 3 years prior, the driver would climb out of the car and be able to escape the incident without injury. David Reagan, who suffered 3 major collisions from the accident, appeared to be shaken up, but he too was able to escape the wreckage without injury. Surprisingly, this accident is not mentioned nearly as much compared to the incident that happened in Texas. It could be because it was Marcos Ambrose's first win in the Cup Series, or Boris Said's memorable post-race interview, or even the fact that Ruderman is no longer in the sport, while McDowell still runs in the series. But whatever the case may be, the deja vu of the crash, along with the tremendous impacts to the guardrails, puts this in the minds of many as one of the more infamous crashes that happened within the last 2 decades. There's nothing scarier than seeing a race car bursting into flames while a driver is inside the vehicle. Not only because of the immediate danger that is all around the driver, but the fact that a driver simply can't exit the car as easily as a regular passenger vehicle. This is because drivers are strapped into a 5-point harness that is minted to the car frame itself. Not only that, but drivers also have to unlatch the safety net of the car, along with climbing out of the driver's window in order to exit the car safely. This is due to the roll cage surrounding the cockpit of the car, which is absolutely needed but causes a difficulty to climb out during dangerous situations, which brings us to our next story in this video. Between 1989 to 1995, NASCAR introduced a series that provided journeymen and short trackers the opportunities to race older race cars competitively in a super speedway type racing style. The series was known as the NASCAR Sportsman Division, a series created by the president and general manager of Charlotte Motor Speedway, Humpy Wheeler. It excited many during its inception, but during its time led to many moments that NASCAR wants to forget. One incident came from a qualifying race in 1991 at Charlotte Motor Speedway. To say that these qualifier races were eventful would be an understatement. In the second qualifier, a bad wreck happened to multiple drivers, which led to some horribly wrecked race cars and even some drivers who were in pain after the crash. Luckily, no one was seriously hurt in the wreck. This would only go down as the second worst crash that day. After the restart, Philip Ross, a 25-year-old dirt track racer who was making his first attempt in the series, would burst into a ball of flames after spinning backwards into an opening in the pit lane. The car laid motionless on pit road, while the fire crept into the cockpit where the South Carolina driver was located. With the whole area up in flames, many were wondering, where was the driver and where were the rescue teams? With the fire now at its worst and no signs of Ross anywhere, people were starting to lose hope that no one was going to climb out of the car. Then, a miracle. Philip Ross was seen bailing out of the passenger door and escaping under his own power. Finally, the fire was put out by officials, and one of the scariest fires in sportsman racing history was doused. Ross suffered second-degree burns from the incident and was grateful to be alive after the crash. Philip decided to retire from motorsport racing from his hospital bed. The Speedway later admitted that the reason they took forever to aid in the crash was due to the fire and gasoline spreading to the rescue vehicle, which was parked nearby. In the end, no one lost their life that day, which is truly a blessing knowing how brutal the crashes were that fateful day at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Head-on collisions into the outside retaining walls are incidents that safety will never fully perfect. To take a full velocity speed of a multi-ton vehicle to almost a complete stop from an immovable object is such a great task that destruction is sure to happen to either the structure itself, vehicle, or occupant behind the wheel. To give credit where credit is due, North America Racing has made major advancements to this type of crash thanks to the safer barriers. However, drivers are not immune from taking impact from said crashes. Mike Skinner was a longtime racer in NASCAR's highest divisions. In fact, one of his first attempts in a NASCAR event was the aforementioned Sportsman race in 1991. Skinner did not start running full-time until 1995, when the Truck Series was introduced to the NASCAR racing world. Not only was Mike Skinner a top star in the series, but he also was able to win the inaugural championship for the series, making him the first of many champions. Although he left the series in 1997 to pursue his Cup endeavors, Skinner eventually returned to the trucks in 2004 and remained competitive until his full-time retirement in 2010 and altogether by 2012. However, before he left, Skinner would have a wreck that almost ended his career abruptly in 2009. In the early stages of the 2009 North Carolina Education Lottery 200, Mike Skinner was looking to continue his success in the Truck Series standings as he was the points leader at the time heading into Charlotte Motor Speedway. He looked to extend that lead over fellow competitor Ron Hornaday Jr. after leading the first 27 laps of the race. With an early caution, strategies were unfolding as a few drivers decided to only take fuel while the leaders decided to change all 4 tires. This would put the then 51-year-old in the 7th position on the restart, behind trucks that were a bit slower than the previous leaders. Coming out of the exit of turn number 4, it seemed like Skinner was going to be able to pass the number 13 truck of Johnny Sauter for the position. That was until Skinner ran out of room.
Taylor Molson was completely sideways and spinning through the grass.
And back out onto the racetrack. And
Skinner gets clobbered. Skinner gets hit hard down into turn 1.
On his side is Mike Skinner, back on the wheels now. Now you see the caution light come on.
See the roof flap goes up and then TJ Bell. Ooh, wow.
He had no idea. TJ Bell had no idea that 5 was coming up the racetrack.
He was, I'm okay. He got turned around after Malsom spun off 4. I just happened to be watching it. He was sliding backwards, went up in the middle of the racetrack and got clobbered from behind, but we heard him say he's all right.
Yeah, that was great news. Yeah. And that was
Coming into the tri-oval, Skinner was pinched down by the number 13 truck of Sauter, causing Skinner's truck to drive into the grass and go for a spin. Unfortunately, the truck shot back up the racetrack into the pathway of the number 11 truck of TJ Bell. From there, the number 5 truck would slam into the wall almost head-on, along with an immediate impact from TJ Bell from behind, sending the truck into the air due to the amount of force between both impacts. The truck then went on its side and slid down the racetrack almost into turn number 1. Unlike other incidents in this series, fans didn't have to wait to see if the driver was okay, as Mike Skinner immediately radioed in that he was okay and that he was upset with how he was raced, proving to everyone that even at his age, he still had that fierce competitor in him. After the accident, Mike Skinner was released from the infield care center as he had no injuries at all from the incident. Skinner would thank his hybrid device, butler seat, and bell helmet for keeping him safe during the incident, as when he witnessed the crash himself, he knew that without those advancements in safety, the outcome would have been entirely different. However, if you ask me what I was most grateful for in this crash, was the fact that the truck hit an area where there was safer barrier along the wall, because if the impact was only a few yards further, then the outcome could have been completely different.
Sunday, February 28th, 1988, and the dawn of a new era in Australian motorsport as Melbourne's new $20 million Calder Park Thunderdome awaits the start of the Goodyear NASCAR 500.
Many may not know this, but in the late 80s, NASCAR was attempting to make the jump to go international with their product. One of their first targets was in the country/continent of Australia. The initial interest of moving the American motorsport to the country was so strong that Melbourne decided to construct the first and only NASCAR-style paved oval speedway called Calder Park Raceway, better known by its nickname, the Thunderdome. This led to a future expedition race that included Cup Series stars at the time, along with a new NASCAR-sanctioned division called Australian Stock Car Auto Racing, or for short, AUSCAR. The division raced with V8 engines, along with Commodores and Falcon race cars, which are vehicles native to the country, making the cars race clockwise around the racetrack instead of the standard counterclockwise. Now, that situation in itself would qualify as a moment in NASCAR where time froze, thanks to our brains faltering with the idea of NASCAR race cars turning right. But there is a reason I bring this division up in particular. As interest in NASCAR holding expedition races internationally was starting to die down in the mid-90s due to the cost and lack of interest by international fans, OzCar continued forward throughout the 90s, running at the aforementioned Calder Park Raceway. In 1995, a points-paying race was being held at the Thunderdome racetrack, and one driver in this field was a multi-winner of the series, Graham O'Brien, who was looking to have a good points-paying race towards the championship. But by lap number 2, contact would be made to the Australian driver, leading to this incident. Similar to the previous story, O'Brien would be pinched by another competitor while going for a pass on the back straightaway. The car would run up the side of the number 19 machine, causing the car to head into the grass while going on its side. Unfortunately, the car's rooftop dug into the grass, which sent the car into a violent barrel roll, nearly 20 feet into the air. When it was all said and done, O'Brien's car flipped over 9 times before coming to rest on the driver's side of the car. Officials were immediately on the scene, believing that O'Brien was badly injured in the accident, but amazingly, he was alright. While reviewing the replays, the car did make violent impacts to the grass, which kept shooting the car into the air. However, none of those impacts were ever to the cockpit of the number 6 car. This kept the driver relatively safe during the crash, and able to walk away with only minor bruising around his face. Based on what I have seen, O'Brien continued racing in the series until the series closure in 2001. That same year, Calder Park Raceway closed its doors as well, ending the brief history of NASCAR in the country of Australia and the infamous Thunderdome. Today, the track sits dormant and no one is actually allowed on the premises, leaving yet another abandoned racetrack to slowly be consumed by nature. As for OzCar, although the stats and memories are very minimal, one thing will always be remembered, and that will be the crash that happened in 1995 with Graham O'Brien that sent his number 6 car 20 feet into the air. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video, and a special thanks to my subscribers as we are so close to hitting 10K. I can't believe we're even that close to that number. It's been a great journey, and I owe it all to you guys. If you guys want me to continue on to this series, please let me know down in the comment section some other crashes you would like me to talk about, preferably ones where drivers were able to walk away, but as we know, in the racing world, that's not always the case. Please also like and subscribe and comment down what other types of videos you would like to see besides the Moment in NASCAR or Time Froze series. And as always guys, you all take care.